So today on BKRsport, we're back doing these positional tier rankings for all the NRL players in 2022. Obviously, you guys loved it last year, and yet again, we're back here doing it again for another season, and I'm so hyped right now. We're really getting into it now. Obviously, it's February, and we're absolutely slapping down these tier rankings, but the draft's still coming out as well. It's been full on, man, and absolutely loving it. Today, guys, we're going to be doing the individual rankings for the 5'8s, which is a very tough one because there is a lot of it's in how you go in position right now. I don't think this is the prime time for 5'8", besides a couple, obviously. And it's going to be a difficult one because we might have a few different opinions or whatnot. But obviously today, guys, I'm not here by myself. We always do have a different content creator every single time we do this. We've got Rugby League in my opinion here today. How are we doing, champion?
I am doing very well, Blaze. Last year, I think, as we were talking about before, I was on the wingers ranking video. So I've been upgraded to the spine this year. So the pressure's on.
Yeah, the pressure is on, man. Obviously, the 5'8" is probably, I think the wingers are very interchangeable. Like, there's a lot of different opinions in regards to the wingers that you can kind of accept somebody else thinking they're better just because. But I think the 5'8", it's more of I think the 5'8" is more solidified in regards to if someone's good or not good. So I think there'll be a lot more, I guess, debate in the comment section. What do you reckon?
I definitely think so. And I think this one might be a little bit harder for us to put on the list because if I do remember correctly last time, there were probably a couple where we were sort of teetering on a different
we wanted like an extra ranking system,
yeah, but I think there might be a bit more butting of the heads possibly this year. I don't know, because there is a thin line between a few of these, whether they are, for example, quality or just elite, or down towards the bottom as well. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, if everyone's watching this, you are going to have a different opinion to us, right? And I'm still, and I've said this on other ones before as well, I'm still getting comments on last year's ones this year saying, like, you're crazy. How could you put him there? He had a great year. And it's like, dude, that was done a year ago. Like, that was done before the season. So if you're watching in 2023 right now, I'm going to do this every single time we do these videos. Please understand, we're filming this right now in January of 2022. So shush, and just enjoy and get ready because next year, or in a couple of weeks' time, you in 2023, we'll probably be coming out with the next tier rankings. But obviously, guys, like I said, you'll have different opinions. Jump in the comment section. You give us your what your rankings would be. Also, you can jump on Teammaker, upgrade this, so you can put it on in the description. There's a link to it, so go and jump onto it. But obviously, before we get in here, man, what do you get done? What do you do here in the rugby league community that people can go and get around?
So I run Rugby League in my opinion. It is primarily a Facebook and Instagram page. Basically somewhere where I upload different questions for people to give their opinions. Obviously, I've been doing this since 2017. I also work as a journalist for everything Rugby League, which I've been able to go on and do from Rugby League in my opinion, which I'm really thankful for. But with Rugby League in my opinion as well, I've been trying to get some YouTube content out there lately. So if you want to head over there, and subscribe to Rugby League in my opinion on YouTube. Maybe check out a couple of videos. That'd be cool too. But yeah, mainly Facebook and Instagram is where my bread and butter is, if you will.
Mate, you can never have enough rugby league content, mate. You can never have enough rugby league content. So go jump over there. And obviously, we did I think because you obviously got a podcast, and we did a Titans quiz that I jumped on as well. Yes. So if everyone wants to go and check that one out, I slapped it, man. I slapped it. But you'll have to see how many I got right so go over there and jump over and listen to that one. But I reckon it's time to get into it here, guys. Also, for a player, if you're watching this right now, don't take offense to what we're saying. If we say something that is, I guess you could take as negative, we put you in not that great, because we will put somebody in not that great here. Every single tier has to be done. So if we put you in not that great, don't take offense to it, man. We're just obviously here giving our opinion and use it as positive criticism to come back this year and prove us wrong, man. We said a couple of players from last year that I was happy to be proven wrong about, and that's all what it's all about, man. It's all good fun, and we have a bit of a chat. And, if they've done wrong to the Titans, then I'm going to slaughter you. But anything else I need to say? No. So the way it's going to go: elite quality, do the job, not that great, unproven. In one player at least in every single one of them. So don't worry, not that great will be coming for you. But first up here, obviously you're a Titans fan. I'm a Titans fan. And we've got our 5'8", who's a new 5'8" here in AJ Brimson. This is a tough one here, man, because obviously we know he's a quality fullback. But when it comes to 5'8", we don't really know too much about. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. Part of me thinks unproven, but he's not. Do we, to some extent, have to take into consideration his NRL career thus far because he is a Queensland Origin representative player. I wouldn't say he's unproven in the NRL.
5'8" though.
At 5'8", though, I feel like
we can come and talk about this. What do we want? Yeah. We want to rank him based on his overall NRL career. We can do that, or if we want to individually rank him on 5'8", well, that's what we can do. This is our ranking, so you choose, man.
Well, I'm feeling like we should maybe lean towards more unproven at 5'8", just because I feel like we should still put more stock in that, as this is a 5'8" ranking video. So I'm leaning towards unproven. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, obviously, he's been fullback for the entire time. We know he's a great fullback. But then again, we've got to remember Darren Lockyer started out as a fullback, and then he transitioned to 5'8", and he had a lot of criticism going into. I'm not necessarily saying that AJ Brimson is Darren Lockyer, one of my favourite players, not my favourite player. I actually would say Darren Lockyer is my favourite player of all time. But, you know, with AJ Brimson, I think he does have the ability to be in quality. We have to wait for this year. We have nothing to base it off except for when he played, I think he played under 20s, but no, he even played like younger grades. I don't know. Long story short, I think this is a long way of saying he's unproven, but I think it's something that we do need to speak about because obviously a lot of people are confused as to maybe why he's not playing fullback this year. But that's because the Titans have completely changed their system. So we're going with unproven, yes?
Yep.
Okay, beautiful. Next up here, we've actually got an ex-Titan. There's actually 3 Titans, you could say, coming at the start here. But the first one here is going to be Albert Kelly, who plays for the Brisbane Broncos. Now, you guys will notice throughout this tier making that we do actually have a couple of guys. So we don't know if it's going to be Albert Kelly or Tyson Gamble. So they're both going to be here just so that we can cover them just in case. But Albert Kelly, man, what are you thinking?
Well, before 2021, obviously, I'd say unproven just because he hadn't been in the NRL for so long. But I remember his return game against the Roosters. He actually looked really good. And he had a couple of really good games there. I don't actually remember him having an absolute stinker of a game. So I'm sort of thinking do the job, maybe just. I don't know. He obviously didn't play a whole lot, but he was, I would say for me at least, pleasantly surprising.
I think with Albert Kelly, he's very nifty. You know, he's very fast. He has that ability he just finds that way to, the ball will bounce in his direction. Like if he does a little chip or he kicks it, the ball will just bounce in his direction and he'll find a way to grab it. And I do enjoy watching him play. There's no way I'm putting him in quality. There's not a chance. Obviously, he's not a young pup anymore and he's got good ability. There's no way I put him in not that great. So, you know, balance it out. You do put him in to do the job. I'd genuinely put him in mid-range to do the job. Obviously, this will be our first one there, so we'll come back to it over time and we'll have players going above and below. In the centres, Jesse Ramey was like the focal point of above or below, so I feel like Albert Kelly could be a focal point in this one. But yeah, I would go with do the job. Would you agree? Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, beautiful. And now next one. This is going to be a big one here that a lot of people will find tough. We're going to go with Ash Taylor, the ex-Gold Coast Titan, who's now at the New Zealand Warriors and has been upgraded from that like small contract that he had, wasn't even a contract, like a training trial, to actually playing number 6. We'll be playing alongside Sean Johnson, which is one that you do have to keep an eye on because I think that could be the best thing for him.
Yeah, it could be. However, if I'm looking at this tier list ranking, even though he is sort of trying to prove himself now at the Warriors, he has played in the halves in the NRL before. And based off of the past couple of seasons, as much as I don't want to do it, I'm feeling at the moment are not that great with a little bit of hope that he will at least go up to do the job in 2021.
I'm going to agree with you. I love Ash. I'm going to put him in not that great. And this is because I want him to prove me wrong here. Obviously, I've supported Ash throughout his entire career. I think he has the ability to be an absolutely fantastic player. I think he has the ability to be in quality, but he hasn't really been able to do that. Obviously, 2016, we had high hopes, and unfortunately, just a lot of off-field things and on-field things haven't worked out with the Titans. So now he's the Warriors. He does have the best halfback that he's probably ever had in his career. Obviously, at one stage, there was with Kane Elgie, and he had Aiden Caesar, who's probably the best that he's had so far until now. Then he had, all over the place. Who was the next one after that? I don't know. Anyway, long story short, Jamal Fogarty maybe, who are all fine, but they're not at the level of Shawnee J. So I think that he might really benefit from the Warriors, and I feel like this is going to be his year, hopefully, to get something done, but I'm going to have to put him in based off what you said as well. I agree that he hasn't really shown anything to date, besides a couple of in recent years anyway, a couple of good passes here and there or good kicks here and there. I think for now we have to lock in for not that great. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry.
That's all good, man. All right, let's move on now, and we're going to have the big man, Cameron Munster from the Melbourne Storm. I think we all know where he's going to go here.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking elite. I would say, though, he was a little bit off in 2021. However, this isn't a tier list ranking for the 2021 season. Overall, I think he should be elite.
Yeah, look, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people look at one season, and this is with all sports. I cover all sports, and I see all the fan bases and all sports, and they look at recent form too heavily. They don't realise that Cameron Munster single-handedly won Queensland, arguably the Origin, in 2020, just 2 years ago, right? And Cameron Munster has got multiple premierships to his name. Cameron Munster is one of the best 5'8", if not the best 5'8", in the game regarding career, or you could even say just in general regarding the guys we've currently got. There's some great 5'8s going around, but in the same sense, like Cameron Munster he's elite. There's no way you could argue that he's not elite. But last year was a down year. Players are going to have down years, you know. Your Cody Walkers haven't always been great. Your Jarome Luai, he wasn't even necessarily unbelievable at times. You know, so players are going to have this, and I guess when you've got such high expectations, even when you're not perfect, even when you're 9, people expect you to be perfect. So they're going to always pick apart your game. But yeah, I'd put him in elite, and I don't believe anyone could disagree with that, personally.
No, definitely not. I think he's got to be up there with elite. Look, if over the next 2 seasons, maybe he has a similar year to 2021, then sure, you drop him down. But at the moment, he's proven.
Absolutely. All right, next up here, we've got someone who is actually challenging Ash Taylor at the Warriors, which is Chanel Harris-Tavita. I think this is a really tough one because I think Harris-Tavita is okay. I wouldn't say there's no way to argue quality, and I don't believe I'd put him in not that great. I'd put him in do the job. I would personally have him, personally speaking, I have him below Albert Kelly.
Okay, I definitely have him in do the job too. I'm also okay with him being behind Albert Kelly, but I do actually think to start the season in 2022, I actually think he will be the one starting with Shaun Johnson as they ease Ash Taylor back in. I don't think Ash Taylor starts in first grade straight away. He might do. I saw Fox League put out their halves rankings the other day, and they actually had the Warriors halves as Ash Taylor and Shaun Johnson, and they had them 7th. And I was thinking, well, they might not even be the halves pairing yet. But it'll be interesting to see. I do think Harris-Tavita will probably start with Taylor either coming off the bench or maybe starting the year in reserve grade, but I think it'll only be a matter of time before we see Ash Taylor back in the NRL. But I do agree for now, chucking Harris-Tavita in do the job.
You know what I find funny is that they have the early game, the first game of the season for the Warriors is the Dragons. So I wouldn't even necessarily be surprised if they threw them in there because it's not like it's a crazy tough game. Yeah. And also they want to get off to a good start and build a foundation. They play the Titans in round 2 at Seabuster Stadium. So I don't know. I feel like they might play Ash there just because obviously odd times the players have something to prove against their old team. And especially with Ash Taylor against the Titans, he would have a lot that he probably feels like he has to prove. So, look, I put Harris-Tavita in, and this has kind of been hijacked by Ash Taylor, but in the same sense, that's what's going to happen. These guys are competing, and the fact that they're competing, it's interesting that we've got Ash not like great and Harris-Tavita up there, but yet we believe probably that Ash Taylor will eventually get the job. I think that Harris-Tavita is okay. I think Albert Kelly's got a little bit more electricity about him and a little bit more. Maybe not consistency, though, but then again, neither of them are really consistent. So, yeah, we'll chuck them and do the job for now. Maybe if we want to change it later, we can do it if we want to. Next up here, we've got Cody Walker. Not really too much to be said about him, but then again, do you have him above Munster or below Munster?
I would have him below Munster just because I feel like there have been periods where he has dropped off. He seems to be a confidence player. Now, his confidence usually up because he's playing a quality side and he is one of their best players. So he is usually up. But for example, in 2019, once he was dropped from the New South Wales squad, he seemed to be a completely different player. In 2020, I think it sort of took him a couple of weeks to hit his stride. Even at the very start of 2021, I'm talking like maybe first 3 rounds, he looked a little bit how you going. But once he sort of hits his stride, it'll be interesting to see how he plays in 2022, though, because he is an amazing ball running half, as many 5'8" are, but his main man, the game controller, Adam Reynolds, is no longer at the club. He's going to have to take on a lot more than I think he has in the past, and maybe a lot more than he can handle in terms of game control, just because if you chuck in, for example, a Blake Taff or one of the other younger guys in at halfback, they're not straight away going to be able to control the team. So there's going to be a lot of expectation on Cody Walker. Obviously, that doesn't impact this list here, but I do think it'll be interesting to see how he adapts in 2022. But for now, I'd say elite, but below Munster.
Absolutely. I've got it below Munster. I believe that if anything this year, he might actually, I know Rabbitohs fans will hate this, I think he might actually drop down to quality. Upper end quality, because we know what he can do, but no Wayne Bennett, no Reynolds there in the partnership. It's going to be a tough year. And then I think it's Ilias they might be putting into the number 7.
Yeah.
I think it's Ilias, or I think Milford's been kicked out, so they won't be having him, which actually probably would have been interesting to see because he might have been a similar style, so Reynolds in a way. But obviously that didn't work out. So, yeah, this year is a big year for Cody Walker to really prove himself. He's had a lot of years to prove himself, and he has proven himself, and he's unbelievable. He's definitely an elite, but maybe not above Munster, because Munster does still have the consistency, despite the fact that obviously last year was relatively down. So, yeah, we'll put Cody Walker in elite as number 2. Next up here, we're going to move to Cooper Johns. Now, Cooper Johns comes in here because I believe Munster is suspended. That's why Cooper Johns will be here. And realistically, man, I do want to put him in not that great.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'd put him below Ash Taylor.
Yeah. He's sort of come through the ranks. I think he's a bit older as well. Like, he's like 24, 25, I think. He's only played a handful of NRL games. It's not necessarily his fault that we're putting him in not that great. It's just in that Melbourne Storm side. You know what I mean? It's not like he's a young player coming through who's going to be the future at Melbourne.
But with that being said, man, like, where would he fit? Like, what other club do you reckon he'd be good at anyway?
Well, that's the thing. Like, there is no club based off of like how he's come through at Melbourne. Sort of, he's always going to be behind a couple of players, and at the age he's at, like, I don't see him pushing into the NRL to be a consistent first grader.
Absolutely.
And his opportunities are going to be few and far between at Melbourne regardless. So I don't know. If he ever was to become a consistent first grader, with all due respect, I'd say it'd probably happen in Super League if he were to ever go over there.
Yeah.
That's not to say he's not talented. I feel like for these not that greats, we're trying to justify it a bit, but I can't see, based off of his NRL career, how we can put him anywhere else, because he's not unproven. But
there's no way he's unproven. Yeah, it's positive criticism, man. That's just what I'll say. It's positive criticism for not that great section. Because like we said, we still have Ash Taylor above Harris-Tavita in the starting lineup, realistically. But yeah, we've got him below him right here. It's just all down to perspective and throwing out opinions. But yeah, Cooper Johns, it will chuck me not that great, and that doesn't mean he can't be better. But I don't really see it as we currently speak. Anyway, maybe next year changes. Right now, I think we'll put him there. So next up here, we'll go to Dylan Brown of the Talatau Eels. They've got an interesting season ahead of them. Probably their last big season to prove themselves. Otherwise, that club will probably get blown up in regards to, that's a baseball term, in regards to just, sinking the ship and building again effectively. But Dylan Brown, what are your thoughts on Dylan Brown?
Dylan Brown, I thought, had a really good 2019. Was decent in 2020, but I actually do think he was a little bit poor for the most part in 2021. I feel like his side probably needed a bit more out of him. I will admit, though, towards the end of the year, especially in the second half of the season, I thought Mitchell Moses actually had a pretty good season.
He did, yeah.
I think that sort of covered a lot for Dylan Brown. I also think Brown, he did spend some time out in 2021 injured. But it's going to be hard here because we've only seen him for 3 years. As I said, he burst into the scene 2019, was decent in 2020. I wouldn't say he was as good in 2020 as 2019, but in 2021, I do feel like he dropped off a bit. So it's He's definitely not in. I don't think he's in not that great, but I'm tossing between quality and do the job. I'm thinking at the moment.
So last year, I can't remember who I did 5/8 with, but last year we had Dylan Brown as lower end quality, and I don't think we can justify putting him in lower end quality this year because I know who's about to come, and that will probably be going into quality, and I can't. This is what I've been saying to everyone throughout this list, is that you have to then compare who you're about to see come. We can change it throughout, but in the same sense, I just know there are players in quality that I have above and definitively above Dylan Brown, which means that you would have to put him down. And I do believe Dylan Brown's still better than Albert Kelly and Harris-Tavita.
100%, yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely, for me, I reckon he'll be the number one. I'll do the job by the end of this personally.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, chuck him in there now ahead of Kelly and Harris-Tavita. But he's sort of one of those guys as well. He's still very young. And, you know, if you're a younger player and you're in, do the job, then you got all the time in the world to get yourself up the list in future years. So
absolutely. All right, next up here, tough one, is Jack Wighton. He's obviously an ex-Dally M, debatably. Obviously, a lot of people do have their debate about that. But in the same sense, he does have to his name. Jack Wighton is a fantastic player, but is he still? He's not. There's no way I'd even remotely argue elite right now. No. I think it would be truly. You still have to probably think quality.
It's tough because in 2019, when he first made the move to 5'8", he had a really good year. 2020 won the Dally M medal. 2021, though, by the end of the year, I remember it wasn't only me, but I was sort of thinking this guy needs to move to the centres or to lock or something because he wasn't looking great at 5'8". Now, that's obviously after George Williams left. And with Jamal Fogarty joining the club, I do sort of take that back a bit and I'm thinking, okay, this might be what Wighton needs so we can actually run the ball. He's sort of gaining what Cody Walker's losing, right? A game-controlling half. That can sometimes make all the difference for 5'8", and I think that did for Wighton in 2021. I think he needed that number 7 there next to him. So I'm still happy to put him in quality because I feel like it's one bad season out of 3. Right, and the other 2 are really good years.
Which is what we kind of referred to with Cameron Munster, in the sense that last year was a bad season, but in the same sense, throughout his career, he's been fantastic. So I would agree with you. I think quality. I think that you could make a genuine argument for him being above Dylan Brown and do the job, but in the same sense, I would put quality and give him this year to prove that he is still a good enough 5'8" to be in quality before he probably maybe did get bumped down next year. And the Raiders are a big problem with this too. Like, you've got to remember as well with teams. Obviously, the Raiders have had a lot of issues since that 2019 grand final with the Ricky Stewart fiasco, with George Williams fiasco, with the fact that they've just been disappointing overall, realistically. And it's interesting to see where the Raiders do go here, especially with who's their number 7 now alongside Jack White?
Fogarty.
Fogarty, that's right, yeah. Fogarty from the Titans, yeah. So, look, I think Jamal, we'll talk about the halfbacks in another one, but I think Jamal and Wighton is a relatively odd pairing, but we'll back him in. So we'll go Wighton here in quality, but it is tentative. And I don't know if he's going to be, how high he's going to be on quality come the end of this. But next up here, we've got a real tough one. Here, and that is going to be Jackson Hastings. He's obviously coming from the Super League. I don't watch the Super League. I'm not going to pretend to watch the Super League. I may catch a game here or there, but not really. I think Hastings, for me, I'm throwing him unproven, but he's also got, and it depends what you want to throw in there. Like, do you watch the Super League?
I watch it a fair bit. I don't watch every single game, but through work last year as well, I had to sort of keep up to date with the results. So I do have a decent grasp. He killed it in Super League and was consistent. Probably we talk about consistency, right? Probably since he's been there, he has overall been the best player in the comp. Obviously, winning a Man of Steel in his first year in 2019. But I do think unproven just because he's not been in the NRL for at least 3 years. He's coming in with something to prove because last time he was here, he was a rookie, essentially. So I do think he has something to prove, and you can't put him in not that great because even though he was playing in Super League, well, he won their best player award, right? And he's played in 2 grand finals out of the 3 years he was there. I just feel like you can't put him in not that great, but you can't really put him in anywhere other than unproven because he's not been in the NRL for that for that period. So I'm thinking Unproven at least.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. I'd go with Unproven, and that's because he hasn't shown us anything in the NRL. I do obviously worry with people who are successful in England who are backs coming into the NRL, and I know that Hastings obviously has played in the NRL before, but in the same sense, he wasn't great at the time because he was very young, had an issue, went over there, has been successful. Now it's going to come here. Like we've seen, Sammy Tompkins come over here. We've seen Dan Sarginson, who have both been unbelievable players in England. Even Georgie Williams, to an extent. Georgie Williams was good for a bit and then he went downhill. But look, I'm happy to hopefully see him prove us wrong and not even prove us wrong, just to prove himself this year. But he is at the Tigers, which is a problem, which is always a problem. There's always a problem when you talk about Tigers players. So it's not like he's coming into a Melbourne Storm setup. It's not like coming into the Roosters setup. He's going into the Tigers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he is. It'll be interesting to see, though, because Adam Doueihi should be his halves partner, but Doueihi won't be back until sort of round 4, round 5, which a lot of people are led to believe is why the Tigers are actually standing firm on keeping Luke Brooks for now, because they'll partner Brooks with Hastings to start the year until Doueihi comes back.
I should have put Adam Doueihi in this, actually.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, I forgot to put Adam Doueihi in this. I just forgot. But then again, he wouldn't play. They wouldn't. Because if Luke Brooks was they wouldn't play surely Jackson Hastings. Anyway, this is getting off topic. But all right, so we'll put Jackson Hastings in Unproven. But yeah, the Tigers are they're an interesting team, mate. They're always an interesting team. Let's move on here to the Newcastle Knights, and we've got Jake Clifford, who obviously was ex-Cowboys. Did actually have a couple of good games last year for the Knights. I don't think I'd be putting him in quality, but I'd put him in do the job.
I think back end of do the job. Whether you want to put him over Harris-Tavita or not, sort of tossing up in my head, but I think sort of lower end do the job.
I would put him below Albert Kelly and it would go below Harris-Tavita. The thing is, I actually like watching him play sometimes. He's very bland at times too, though. He can be very boring at times, but in the same sense, there's no way you put him above Dylan Brown, and I think the electricity of an Albert Kelly is a bit better for me personally. Harris-Tavita, it's 50-50. I'd probably put him... I'm giving him a positive ranking, even though he's bottom end to the job. I still think if he has a good number 7, he doesn't need to be unbelievable. You know what I'm saying? Like, he can just do what he needs to do and let that 7 work it, and then he can probably bump himself up to higher end of the job. But for the time being, I would agree. I don't mind watching him play, though. Are you not a big fan?
Oh, I think he's a good player, but unfortunately, ever since he's made his NRL debut, to be honest, he's not played in good teams.
Absolutely.
Like at the Cowboys the past few years, he's not really had that halves partner next to him. I think when he made his debut year, he played a couple of games and he had Jonathan Thurston beside him, and he looked amazing. So he's definitely got the talent. But now he's moved to Newcastle and he's halves partner.
Did Clifford play with Thurston? I would have thought that would have been Michael Morgan.
I think he played like 1 or 2 games. Morgan might have been out. This is 2018, so it's that year where the Cowboys still... It's weird. Thurston was still there, but they had a really bad season. I think he played I think at least his debut, was alongside Thurston. I'm 99.9% sure they at least played a game together. But anyway, his halves partner now at Newcastle in 2022 is going to be Adam Clune. That's just going to be interesting to say the least for me.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, we'll chuck him into. We'll do the choice. Yeah, geez, that's an interesting lineup there at the Knights. It's going to be an interesting year for Newcastle. Anyway, we won't get into a pre-season prediction, but it's going to be interesting for the Newcastle Knights this year. Next up, we'll go with Jarome Luai. This is a tough one for me. I'm going to let you go here first, but it is obviously between elite or quality.
He's either got to be at the bottom of elite, or I'd say the top of quality. He was having he had a great 2020. His 2021 was great until the Origin period ended, and he came back. And as much as I love Jarome Luai, he was sort of cruising along a bit.
And let Nathan Cleary take the reins.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like he sort of lost because Nathan Cleary always has the reins at Penrith. But you look at Luai's contribution for the first half of the season, he was definitely adding a lot more than he was in the second half. If Luai had maintained that consistency after the Origin period, I don't think it's debatable. I think you have to put him in elite. But I'm sort of leaning towards the very top of quality.
I think this is a controversial. I think it's a controversial one because I want to put him above Jack Wighton and below Cody Walker in top of quality, the very top of it. I would look. I don't know what it is because Jarome Luai, I love watching him play. Man, he's got so much elusiveness about him. He's very difficult to read, which is great to watch. You know, you don't want when you got Nathan Cleary, who is very safe but also unbelievable, obviously. But when I say safe. You know that he is going to give you a brilliant performance pretty much every single game. With Jarome Luai, it can be kind of 50-50. I'd probably say more 75-25 in the sense that Luai will have an unbelievable game, but sometimes there will also, he will be a bit of a passenger to Nathan Cleary, which is cool and all, which is fine. But, and this is, we're making a negative out of a positive again here. This is what will happen throughout these because you do have to compare them. But I would personally put him at the utmost top of quality, and I think people will disagree with that, and they'll say you have to put him in elite. But we can do whatever we want in our rankings. This is our opinion. I would personally put him top of quality, but I do think he is leaps and bounds ahead of Jack White.
Oh, definitely leaps and bounds ahead. And as I said, I would definitely have him in elite if his form didn't drop towards the end of the season. You
know what? I reckon we should put him in elite, but lower than Cody Walker. I reckon he should be there. I just think that I really think that he should be there overall. Yeah, I think that's a tough one. I think most people have an elite. I think that you could make an argument for both, but I just think there's too much of a difference between Luai and Wighton currently, and not as much of a significant difference between Cody Walker and Luai. Even though there is still difference, not as big of a gap between Wighton and Luai. Would you agree?
Yeah, and you know what? I think Luai might be someone who benefits in this tier list from coming back to at the end and maybe going, okay, who else is in quality? Who else is in the elite? Okay, and sort of adjust accordingly. So I'm happy to put him in there for now.
Absolutely. All righty, we're into the Dragons now, and this is hard because they've got a couple here we don't really know, and they're both kind of inexperienced, to be honest with you. But we've got Jayden Sullivan here. I'd be pretty happy to just throw him straight into Unproven unless you've got anything else.
Yeah, happy to put him in Unproven. From what we've seen so far, and from what I've heard about him, he's got something special, like a decent amount of hype around him, but he's unproven.
Absolutely. Alrighty, we'll move into Kieran Foran. Now, this is difficult because at times through he's had a long career. Obviously, he's not a young pup anymore. He's had a long career, and it's difficult. He's not, obviously, you wouldn't even be throwing in elite. I would argue personally between lower end quality or even I'd probably more so argue to the job. I just think that he's got a really good team around him. I think he does do what he needs to do there for Manly. I don't think he's absolutely exceptional. I think he's underrated in regards to a lot of fans who don't realise that Kieran Foran is still a big chunk of what Manly are doing positively at the end of the last season. But in the same sense, I don't know. You could argue that he's alongside Kieran Foran. Sorry, not Kieran Foran. Jack Wighton. But it's just maybe the age factor that really gets to me.
Well, the thing is, too, when he was fit at the Bulldogs for the last couple of years there, whenever he was playing, he was still really good and a massive positive impact to that side. But unfortunately, we can't go off of how good they would have been if they weren't injured, because at the end of the day, they were injured. It's like we can't say Tom Trbojevic would have been the best player in the world in 2020 if he hadn't been out injured for the majority of the year.
Yeah.
We have to go off of what happened. So with Kieran Foran, I'd say we'd definitely have him higher up if he wasn't injured those couple of years based off of the form he had and how he's played at Manly this year. But I'm definitely looking, at least personally, towards the very top of do the job.
Yeah, I would personally, I'd put him above Dylan Brown. I'd put him above Dylan Brown there just because of the experience and also because he's still very good. I'm discussing between quality and do the job. So if you're saying upper end do the job, the top, then yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and also, Jack, when comparing him to Wighton also does have that Dalian medal under his belt and, of course, has played a lot less 5'8" than Kieran Foran. But in that time where he's played 5'8", it's been nearly perfect, I guess you could say. So I think, below Wighton and at the top of do the job.
Alrighty, so we've got Luke Keary here. Now, Luke Keary is difficult because obviously he was out for pretty much all of last season. So you kind of have to just wipe out the 2021 season and go off what we've seen of him prior. But it was it was an ACL, wasn't it? It was an ACL injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's coming back from an ACL, which also does have to be factored in, thinking that maybe he might not be as good. Now, that's just an assumption, but you do have to, it has to be taken into account because of the fact it was such a severe injury. I would still probably throw him into quality. I think he's a premiership winning 5'8". I think they might even throw him into half. I think they'll put Sam Walker there. But in the same sense, I think Luke Keary will come back in and he will slot in brilliantly, and I think he'll be great still. So I'd put him in quality. And honestly, man, I would nearly put Keary above Wighton.
This is my big disagreement here because I would have him between Munster and Walker based off of his career. I think obviously injuries have had an impact, and I just spoke of how we've got to go off of what we've seen on the field. But for the most part, he's just such a good player. I know he had that one bad Origin game that he played, and then he got injured early in 2021, so he's sort of seen a bit lower, I guess you could say. But in terms of consistency throughout his career, he's won a Clive Churchill medal. He's won 3 premierships. He's led a team to a premiership that year where he won the Clive Churchill medal. Of course, Cooper Cronk played, but he was sort of there to be a bit of an on-field coach, I guess you could say, because he was playing with a broken arm. So Keary sort of had to take the reins there. And I just think as well, consistency over that prolonged period as well. I'd say Keary's probably been more consistent than Cody Walker. So this is something we might have to meet in the middle with here, because based off of we're not having him in between Munster and Walker. I think we're going to have to find the middle ground.
Well, the thing is, man, is that like what I'm about to say is that the only reason I can't necessarily agree with putting him into elite right now is because I can't guarantee he comes back from the ACL injury and plays as well as he has. Like if it was like it's such a significant injury to a big point for a 5'8", obviously a 5'8" needs to be able to really be fluid around the field and needs to move around really nicely. And I can't guarantee after an ACL that he trusts it. Remember Kevin Gordon for the Titans? Like when he had his ACL, he was one of the best wingers in the competition. As soon as he came back, man, he lost all of his speed, and that's unfortunately where his downfall was at a relatively young age, and just didn't come back the same player. I'm not saying that Keary and Gordon are comparable in the slightest, but in regards to injuries, it's comparable. So for me, that's why I would argue that I can't say that if Keary is at his best right now with no ACL, then I would have probably put him in between Cody Walker and Jarome Luai. But right now, I think we're kind of leaning towards Luai and Wighton, and I just think that the ACL injury provides too much doubt about the next season. And I think next season, if he has a full year to him, he'll be then in the elite, if you know what I'm saying.
Of course, but as well, 2022, that's it's sort of speculative. It's in the future. I guess I'm trying to look at what we've seen from him, because as well, like, with all due respect to Jarome Luai, he's the New South Wales 5'8". He's he is the reigning premiership winning 5'8". But I can't see how you put Keary
on this entire list here. Do you think that Jack Wighton should be the only one in quality? Because I'm looking at the next ones coming, and I can't see many going more into quality. I don't think any of them go into quality, really.
Oh, no, definitely not. Okay, so if you want to, I will concede this one to you just because of, and I think that 2021 season's had an impact. I'll concede this one to you, and we can put Luke Keary at the very tippy top
of quality.
But I think as well, what comes into it for me is I think, and this might be a bit of a controversial take as well, just because of Munster and Cody Walker being there, even Jack Wighton, who's a former Dalian medal winner, I would say at Luke Keary's peak, for me, better than anyone on this list at his peak as well.
I wouldn't necessarily disagree, man. I wouldn't disagree. Like I said, the only reason that I'm putting him here is because of the fact that I just want to see him come back and be as good as he once was before I can really solidify him alongside the 3 guys right now who are still, cracking on like usual and slapping it down. So it's just tough, man. And also another factor brings in, like, I don't think that Jack Wighton should be the only one in quality here. There's no way I can put Luai, Walker, or Munster down. There's no way the guys who did the job I'd be putting up there alongside Wighton. The only one I could even consider is Keary. There is still a bit of a gap between the two. So, look, it's a tough one. Obviously, everyone sees your opinion. Everyone sees my opinion. And then they can make their own opinion in the comment section. That's what these videos are for, guys. Not everyone's going to agree. I know that because we got slaughtered a lot last year, all of us. We got slaughtered a lot. But let's move into the next one. And that's going to be Matty Burton. Now, I think we may probably disagree here. What would your thoughts be?
I'm thinking in do the job. I'm not quite sure where. When he was playing in the halves for Penrith last year, so during the origin period when Luai and Keary were out, and I think he even played a game with Luai for the most part in those games. I know there was that sort of 15-minute period at the end of the game against Cronulla where he sort of turned it on and nearly single-handedly brought Penrith back into the game. I don't think he was that great when he played in the halves for Penrith last year. Maybe that's a bit controversial. I'm not too sure, but it's going to be very interesting to see how he goes in the halves at the Bulldogs next year when he's either going to be partnered with Jake Averillo, who I don't think's really a half, or Kyle Flanagan, who is the closest thing to a halfback they have, and who knows how he is going to perform. And of course, that's in the future. But I think for now, I'm thinking do the job, and I'm not sure whether to put him in front or behind Albert Kelly. I'm actually sort of leaning towards behind Albert Kelly as well.
Remember when I told you that Jesse Ramey was the centerpiece, and then I told you Albert Kelly was going to be the centerpiece? Well, guess what? There you go. I told you.
He is the parameter, but I do think as well he hasn't played, and I'm not saying he's definitely not in Unproven, but I'm also saying that he's not played a bunch of games at 5'8" in the NRL. He's played, I think, maybe 5 at most. And from what I've seen, those games that he played in this year last year, weren't that impressive at 5'8" in particular. So I am thinking maybe just behind Albert Kelly here.
So I'm going to preface what I'm going to say here, and I'm going to put him above Albert Kelly, below Dylan Brown.
Okay.
But the reason why I'm saying this is that I have a very similar opinion to you in the sense that I watched him. I watched every single game last year. I streamed every single game on the channel, pretty much. I think I've probably missed like 3 games in total across all teams. And every time I saw Burton play, it wasn't anything special in the halves. He never, and with a team like the Panthers, now a lot of the time he also had that origin period where there were a lot of players out, obviously with New South Wales, I think 8 or 9 players out, which I can grant, but in the same sense, he just wasn't anything special, man, for me. It wasn't anything special. Obviously, if people don't know, Matt Burton is also the Dogs now, which also has to be taken into account because they will have time to gel, and I still don't have the same belief in the Dogs as everybody else seems to have, you know? Like, I really find it odd that everyone is all over this Dogs team when they're just a bunch of guys thrown together. Like, it's like they're good players individually, but they're good. They're not. Anyway, that's going into Bulldogs.
Yeah.
But, look, I'd be putting Burton in. There's no way I'll put him in not that great. And I do believe he has the ability and quality. That's more in the centres. I would say, I'd put Matt Burton above Albert Kelly and below Dylan Brown because there is a lot more potential with Burton than Albert Kelly. And I think Dylan Brown has probably shown a bit more by now to be above him. Would you disagree?
I agree, definitely. And as well, Kelly and Burton probably played around the same amount of games at 5'8" last year as well. So I think it sort of suits there as well. Yeah.
I'm just saying he struggled to an extent as a 5'8" for the Panthers, and even when he had Keary alongside him occasionally when Luai was out. So if he's relatively struggling there, it's going to be interesting to see if he can not struggle with the Dogs team. He did come last year and have got, in my opinion, the worst coach in the league, and then also players who just aren't used to each other. It's going to be interesting. The Bulldogs are going to be really tough to read this year. But we'll chuck him above Albert Kelly below Dylan Brown. So next up we've got 5 players left here, and it's going to be Matty Moylan, a tough player to read here because he has an unbelievable amount of potential, but he's never really lived up to his potential, and he's not exactly a young bloke anymore, man. He's definitely moving on, and he doesn't have... Well, Sean Johnson is not there. I guess he couldn't really play because of him, but in the same sense, like, their halves pairing with Nico Hines is going to be odd for him as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm straight away thinking above Ash Taylor in not that great, just because in the past couple of years, there have been weird periods where he's gone through like 3 games where he's had a really good game, at least running the ball. I remember in 2021 specifically, he went through a little bit of a purple patch right before he re-signed for a year. There was that period where it was looking like he was going to leave the club completely, and then obviously Cronulla didn't re-sign Sean Johnson, so out of necessity, they got Nico Hines as well, but out of necessity, they sort of had to re-sign someone, and Moylan did have a patch there where he played a good few games, but unfortunately, I'm not saying he's obviously done this on purpose or anything, but if you compare his form to before and after he re-signed with Cronulla last year, there is a significant dip for me. So I think he's shown more in the past couple of years than Ash Taylor has overall, but I still think not that great.
Yeah, the thing is with Matt Moylan is that I believe he should be above Clifford. But with that being said, it's like he hasn't done anything to really prove it recently. At the Panthers, he was obviously great, but hasn't done anything at the Sharks. And honestly, we put Ash Taylor in for the reason being of very recently he hasn't been great. So I would definitely, I'd put Matty Moylan above Ash Taylor. I believe that, oh man, he probably is still better than Ash in that sense. But that's the thing, like I think Cooper Johns to these guys should be even further down. And I'm not trying to disrespect Cooper Johns there, but I think Ash and Moylan are still much better than them. This is a really tough one because Matt Moylan has all the potential in the world, but just didn't live up to it, unfortunately. So hopefully this year he can bump himself up. I believe he has maybe the ceiling right now of being above Dylan Brown, the ceiling that he could reach this year, but I just don't see it happening. So for the time being, we'll put him in not that great, and hopefully he can prove us wrong. Do you disagree with any of that?
I think you've summed it up completely, like in terms of your ceiling being just above Dylan Brown. Looking at the players in the order we've got them in, to be honest, yeah, that's around where I'd have him. I couldn't see him being any higher than that.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so we've got 4 players left here, and this is going to the Tigers because... this isn't the Tigers. He's going to the Dragons, I believe. Moses Mbye at the Dragons. And there's 3 players in the Dragons because they don't know their halves pairing yet. So we may as well throw him in. That's why at this point I didn't chuck in the other player that I forgot about before somewhere. I can't remember.
Adam Dewey?
Adam Dewey, that's the one. But yeah, so Moses Mbye, this is, for me, I don't even necessarily believe he's going to make the team.
I have a feeling he will start the year at 5'8", and they will see maybe how Moses Sully goes. I think he will start the year for the Dragons as well, and then maybe shift him into the centres, if not maybe play him at 14 eventually. Put it this way, I can genuinely see at different points in the year Moses Mbye playing maybe at least 3 different positions for the Dragons and then maybe settling into a 14 role. But I think round 1, he will be the starting 5'8", but he screams a bit of a do the job player to me. I'm just not sure where.
I'm not going to lie to you, man. I disagree. I'd put him below.
Okay, I can see the argument. Where in not that great would you have him?
Like, that's the thing. Like, I personally would prefer if my team, if I wanted the potential of a ceiling, I think a higher ceiling will come from both Moylan and Taylor.
Oh, okay. I definitely see where you're coming from. And the difference is between these guys, Mbye will probably play in different positions throughout the year.
Which shows that he's not necessarily... If you're getting changed around positions, man, it shows that you're not good enough really for the individual position. Like, I know you can be a bit of a floater, but in the same sense, if you're not locked in, that means you're not really good enough to be, especially in a 5'8" position too. You want a locked-in spine, man. You don't want to be chopping and chaining in the halves pairing. So if they aren't willing to back in Moses Mbye for the whole year, then that shows to me that they don't really even believe in him necessarily. Obviously, there's Talatau Amone, who we've got to speak about in a moment, and there's also the other one Jayden Sullivan, that they're considering. And they're 2 young blokes. Honestly, I personally put it below Ash Taylor.
You know what? You brought me around to it. You've convinced me. At the start of the video, we did say that we're basing these off of them at 5'8" as well. When we put AJ in Unproven, so I think we've got to put Mbye there and not that great. If we were ranking him overall as a player, I don't know if you'd agree, but I think I'd have him at least in do the job.
Yeah.
But you're correct, as in like playing as a 5'8". Yeah, I've got to agree.
All right, next one up here, we've got Scotty Drinkwater for the Cowboys. I will put this out there and I will say that he is in a similar area. I definitely think he's doing the job, but I'd put him above Jake Clifford.
This is where he's, and maybe his performances at fullback are encroaching a little bit on this. So I think maybe I should at least bump him up a bit. But I don't rate Scott Drinkwater that high in the sense that he could be top for me. He could be topping not that great. He, for me, is sort of a teeterer between not that great and do the job. But then again, I think Clifford sort of is
a teeterer as well.
A teeterer as well. So you could genuinely have him just above Clifford. But I think put it this way, I think max, he's just above Clifford. I think lowest, he's probably just in front of Moylan.
I would disagree in the sense that max is above Clifford. At lowest, he's below Moylan. Because I believe at least with Moylan, he has a bit of it. I would actually be happy to concede this. You conceded Keary. I would be happy to concede this, but I would concede it even further than what you've said, and I would go to above Ash Taylor, below Matt Moylan.
Okay. What if we maybe let's meet in the middle here, and we'll put him just above Moylan for now?
Yep, absolutely. I don't disagree with that at all. Obviously, it's only one spot anyway. And I just think maybe the pace of Moylan might bump him up a little bit for me. But in the same sense, no, I don't disagree with that one. And I said around Clifford anyway, so they're all pretty much in the same area. Two places to go here, and we've got Talatau Amone. Now, he played a couple of games last year, probably going to end up being an Unproven, but in the same sense, he did play a bit last year.
Yeah, but I think in that sense as well, Unproven, but maybe just, I'm actually tossing up whether to put him above Jayden Sullivan or not, just because he has played that little bit more. But then again, I feel like, based off of the hype I've seen as well, as I said, we were talking about Sullivan, it seems Sullivan's ceiling might be a bit higher. I'm not sure how much of that we're going to take into account, but
the thing is,
Unproven.
With Unproven, man, we're not ranking Unproven. That's the whole point of Unproven. They're just chucking him in there and saying, prove it this year kind of thing. Because, they're just so, you can't really, the fact of the matter is you can't tell what's going to happen because they're Unproven. Look, there's, AJ Brimson would not probably be the number one there, and then Jackson Hastings probably two, and then you'd have to discuss between Amone and Sullivan, but in the same sense, that's not really ranked there. So we'll chuck him in Unproven. And then finally here, we do have Tyson Gamble, polarising figure, the old Tyson Gamble. Did obviously get linked with the Storm at one stage, which would have been interesting, but Tyson Gamble, I personally believe, is the epitome of do the job.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think, and I think this should happen as well, because I think he's done enough in 2021. I don't think, in terms of form, he actually ever played bad. His only issue is he does have a bit of an angry streak about him, and spent a little bit of time on the sidelines there. But I think, because I would personally start him at the start of the year over Albert Kelly alongside of Adam Reynolds, I think either above Kelly, or even I'm basing this off of what we've seen of them in the NRL, right? At 5'8", I think the argument can be made to just put him in front of Matt Burton. Call me crazy, but I think
I don't think it's a crazy suggestion, but I would personally, I was thinking whether it was going to be Kelly again, the focal point again, whether it was above or below him. I would personally say, if anything, I would say Kelly and Gamble should be literally exactly the same, that they've got positives and negatives in so much. So I would put Gamble in front of him for what you're saying, but in the same sense, I feel like if we were able to put them just as one collective, Broncos 5A, you would put them exactly the same. Matt Burton just above, and then Harris-Tavita just below, because I can't separate them really. There's just so many differences between their games as a number 6, and I think that realistically, man, if you want to talk about who they should be playing, I actually believe that Albert Kelly will suit Adam Reynolds more, because Albert Kelly is a bit more of a faster, elusive 5'8" compared to Tyson Gamble, who does want to take a bit more charge than realistically he should be. And Adam Reynolds is the guy who's going to be taking charge there as number 7. So I feel like Tyson Gamble and Adam Reynolds might clash a little bit, and I think Albert Kelly probably is the guy there. But in the same sense, that they're in the exact same area, so it comes down to what people believe they would agree with. Would you disagree with anything I said?
No, not really. I do.
Cody Walker and Albert Kelly are very similar.
Yeah, well, for me, at least with Tyson Gamble, it's going to be how easily, because you're right, he at times in 2021 as well sort of had to take a bit more control because there was no out-and-out halfback there at the Broncos. I do think, though, he has the ability to pull back. He's not done it yet, so obviously that's speculation, but I do think he'll probably have the ability to pull back and maybe play purely as a ball-running half, but it is close between him and Kelly. I guess another reason, too, to just have him in front of Kelly is he's a bit younger as well, so I guess that comes into it, but yeah, pretty much the same. It'll be interesting to see. I feel like we might see both have a period in there with Adam Reynolds at some point throughout 2022 anyway. So I think we'll get to see them both and what they have to offer.
Absolutely. Well, there we go. That's everyone done there, I believe. And I don't think that many will disagree with, I guess the only maybe disagreement would be Eels fans trying to tell us that Dylan Brown is number one in elite, which is what they always do. I don't really think anyone can disagree with much. It's just maybe Keary into elite, Kieran Foran maybe quality. I disagree. I think that everyone here is pretty much in the right tier.
Yeah, I think, well, the only one I'd say the only one we sort of had a bit of a staunch disagreement on was Keary, just because of the vast difference. So definitely when this one comes out, I'm going to be looking at the Keary comments personally in particular, just to see where people are at with that, because again, we can speculate all we want, but if there wasn't an ACL injury for Luke Keary last year, chances are he walks into elite. No matter where you put him there, I think he is an elite, but fingers crossed he can stay fit this year for the Roosters, because I think as long as he gets a full season out there and is still like within the realm of his form, he probably bumps back up into elite. And Jarome Luai is also, I guess, an interesting one, although I'm more convinced of his eliteness now that we've gotten through the video, because we did have him at the top end of quality, but I think the way that the tiers have ended up, I think he suits being sort of towards the end of elite there. So
yeah, 100%. Well, that's going to do us here for today, guys. So obviously, let us know in the comment section what you would say, where you would put them, and like I said, in the description, you can click on the link and you can go do it yourself. Obviously, thank you to Rugby League, in my opinion, for coming along. Obviously, let them know where they can find you again.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, the two main areas, and also on YouTube. But yeah, definitely Rugby League, in my opinion, on Facebook, and at RL, in my opinion, on Instagram.
Too easy, man. Sounds good. Well, all right, guys, we're going to be done here for today. So hit that thumbs up button, subscribe in your own tier. These obviously coming out thick and fast, man. The NRL season is on right now, so we're going bang, 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 bang. Plenty of NRL content here. Obviously, we've got NBA, baseball, bloody rugby, literally everything on the channel, man. So get around it. Put the notification bell on. Not sure which one will come out next, but that's why you're going to have your notification bell on, baby. Get that one on right now. But that's going to do it for today. Appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.